You're welcome back. You're still watching TVC Breakfast. The devastating reality of child sexual abuse and exploitation is a grave infringement on a child's rights, dignity, and well-being. Girls who have been subjected to this horrific fate often suffer from infectious diseases, pregnancy, mental illness, substance abuse, and violence, which can forever alter the natural course of their growth, according to the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF. Child prostitution is one of the greatest infringements of rights that children can endure. The statistics are even more alarming, and the estimated 1 million children are forced into prostitution every year globally, with the total number of prostituted children estimated to be as high as 10 million. Joining us via Zoom from the United States is President of the African Women Mobilization Commission, Dr. Owa Onyoha Osimiri. Sorry for, for doing that to your name. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning to you. Thank you so very much.
All right.
I'm excited to be here.
Okay. The figures we've just reeled out are alarming. The wickedness, the hatred that somebody needs to muster to do those very horrific things are unimaginable. Could you tell us if the figures are increasing or reducing?
Well, the figures are not necessarily reducing, but may I just say thank you very much for having me here and give thanks to the Most High, Chineke, and my ancestors and my mother and father, Ike Okonyoha, who is the founder of the Godian religion or Chiism in Igbo, and my mother Noha, and my ancestors. Please understand that's important to me, because if I start talking about anything, it's because of them that I'm here. So in terms of if the numbers are increasing, the numbers are indeed increasing. It hasn't really necessarily gone down because not much focus is on this issue. There's so many things going on in the world today, particularly in politics. And most people are focused on that. I'm in the United States, obviously, so there's so much focus on the politics of the moment. But the very, very important thing that involves children, girls in particular, is not being managed at all. So it's something that you don't focus on, you ignore, you see. So unless there's focus, then there's work being done to reduce the numbers. That's not happening. Yeah, there are many, certainly there are many programs instituted by the United Nations and different countries as well. But when it comes to focusing on the prevalence of sexual molestation, sexual exploitation of girls, it's not happening.
And one will wonder why.
All right. My question has to do with the fact that we have several NGOs in Nigeria who try to address some of these issues that have to do with young girls and their vulnerability. Are we saying that perhaps they do not understand the issues critically, and that they are not doing enough collaboratively to addressing these matters? And if they don't, what are they missing?
Well, I think there's implementation gap. All right. Everybody pretty much has their own ideas of how these things are supposed to work, right? And as long as we're not working collectively, as long as it's not based, as long as it's based on individual programming by different organizations and not the collective work that needs to be done, then we are servicing just a few individuals and we're not servicing the collective. So the implementation gap is the problem. Insufficient resources, training, or political will, if you will, to focus on a collective means of solving the problem as opposed to individual organizations doing their thing.
Amazing. Well, top of the morning to you. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you for everything you do in portraying Africa, and you look beautiful this morning as well. But talking about this, we often talk about girls a lot when we talk about child rights, and sometimes we forget about boys. So the question I want to ask today is that why are girls more vulnerable when we talk about child right protections?
Well, I think unfortunately the community culture has a lot to do with it. In most, and I will focus in African communities, there's more emphasis on helping boys than, or educating boys and helping boys than the girls, believe it or not. All right. As a product, I'm a product of the Nigerian Biafran War. And after the war, I saw what was happening to girls, and there was really not much being done to combat it, you see. So girls continue to be vulnerable. They don't get the education necessary to teach them what they need to know about who they are and how to resist being vulnerable. That's still going on. It's a cultural thing. I hate to say it, and we need to admit that. There's a cultural inclination towards avoiding or ignoring matters that implicate girls. Now, my attitude towards the whole thing is these girls, once they experience trauma, it doesn't go away. All right, it follows them throughout their lives, and these are the women of tomorrow. These are the ones that are going to be the mothers of future generations. And if they're traumatized, right, it becomes a generational issue, because whatever issues they have, they ultimately will pass that on to their children, possibly not the way they experienced it, but the trauma, the pain, the anger, all of that sometimes is passed on to their own young. So we need to care. Let me just say one of the reasons why girls are terribly vulnerable is there's a tendency for us, for poor families. Obviously, poverty has a lot to do with it. Poor families take their children and send to family members, or maybe some individuals who have money, who promise, families are promised to teach and educate them. But what happens in effect is when they do get to these families, not all of them certainly, but some of them, they become housekeepers and they become sexually assaulted. I have in my organization, the African Women Mobilization Commission, our focus, our advocacy is on these girls that are put in these homes, right? Being prostituted, if I may use that expression, by their own family members, right? And the family members turn their backs when things go wrong, when the girls are being abused, and the master, if I may use that expression, and the madam, say contradict the kids. The girls are not listened to, right? So the lack of support that the little girls get, they don't talk about it, so they stay in that situation, and society doesn't seem to even care. There are many of us in society, we know these things are happening. We know what's happening to these girls, and we don't do anything. I've seen that personally.
And that's where I'm coming in from, because a lot of policies, a lot of advocacies, just like yours is doing, and so many other, we've seen child trafficking, female trafficking, go to Libya, you see organ harvesting, etc. In all of these that you've mentioned, which one is the most pressing, or the most pressing challenges in protecting girls' exploitation today, and exactly what can we effectively do to address this locally and globally, very quickly, if you can?
I think that what's very, very important that we do is, first and foremost, make sure that we understand the importance of supporting girls, all right, and their vulnerabilities. That's number one. And then we must focus on prevention, all right, preventing these things from happening. More emphasis on including collective community-based programming and socioeconomic support for low-income families, because a lot of these things stem from the families not being able to support themselves. So prostitution becomes a means to an end. So we need to be sure that we have to not ignore the fact that it is a collective work that needs to be done, not individual work. And wherever the areas of improvement that do happen, that we latch onto that. We look at what's working and we expand on it. If I may just say very quickly, there are some girls that we have found that were being trafficked in Nigeria, and we've taken those girls away from their families, and we put them in schools to make sure that you know, they have a different experience in life, and that's working. Taking them out of the situation that's you know, that's abusing them is another important thing. We don't just put them back in there. We don't ignore it and say, okay, well, we'll get to it later. Once we see it, we must do something immediately. Intervention is important. Immediate intervention.
And your kind of intervention, I must say, is very commendable, especially where you have to see to their education and their well-being, ensuring that they have a good future. But after doing all this, do you guys put a report together, submitted to relevant agencies of government?
Well, as a nonprofit organization, much of our information is on our website. We're not supposed to get political, right? That's not what we do. We don't get into politics, but we do collect information. May I just share something very exciting that we're doing? We're doing it here in the United States, but we intend to take it into Nigeria. There is a program called Empowering Girls Through STEM Education, and we take girls who are coming out of foster care, the foster care system, and a lot of them, of course, when they get into the society, they are abused, or they get pregnant, they get into drugs and all that sort of thing. So what we do is we take them, and we are building these monolithic domes. It's a Joe Dome integrated living services, where we put them in these beautiful science-based environments so that they learn STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we keep them there for about a year. And after they graduate, we find them work. Until they've gotten work, we don't let them out, because we don't want their abuse to continue. So this is what we want to do in Nigeria as well. We come and build these beautiful structures where we put these girls, many of them sexually abused, exploited, but we want to take them away from that and put them in an environment that encourages and brings out the best in them. Because we are losing a lot of talent, because, you know, we are not focusing on what good they can do in society, but letting them rot out there. I'm sorry, there's so many of them that are just practically rotting, and there's not enough being done. So our goal is not just to save them from sexual exploitation, but to incorporate programming that will make them constructive citizens of society.
All right, we must thank you, Dr. Uwa Unyoha Oshimiri, President of the African Women Mobilization Commission. Thank you so much for your time on the program. Thank you.
Thank you.